This is an absolute robbery for the Pittsburgh Steelers as massive new reports have dropped surrounding a huge trade involving an absolute superstar. We're going to break down exactly what this report is and discuss what it means going forward as it changes the landscape for the Pittsburgh Steelers and their trade plans heading into the trade deadline. But not only that, we have some other trade updates and also more updates ahead of the big game tomorrow against the Packers. A ton to go over on this episode, but before we get into it all, ladies and gentlemen, a quick reminder, if you're part of that 67 or so percent who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Steelers content. Your guys' support has been absolutely unbelievable. Folks, what a day. Obviously, tomorrow's going to be a very exciting one with the game, crucial game, but what a time to be a football fan in general. But trade rumors are really starting to pick up, folks, and some new rumors have dropped surrounding a player that I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with, but you might be surprised with the Steelers' interest here. So MLF football. Now, let me preface this by saying he has gotten things right in the past. He's not as notable a reporter as guys like Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, but he does say, should the Steelers trade for Jets star wide receiver Garrett Wilson? Pittsburgh quarterback Aaron Rodgers spent a couple seasons with Wilson in New York, and they were very close. Wilson, 25, of course, is a former 10th overall pick, and we know he was Offensive Rookie of the Year back there 4 years ago, but 2022, so 3 years ago. Folks, this has been a rumor that has started to emerge because we know it has been made crystal clear by the reporters that the Steelers are interested in specifically a wide receiver, right? And of course, there's other areas they can improve. And there's been kind of some speculation about them going all in, them not. A lot of it will depend on how the next few games go. However, this new rumor is very interesting, and we know that the Jets are watching their 2025 season fall apart before their eyes. And this article was from a couple weeks ago, and I want to kind of dive into it because it shows how this report has built. Head coach Aaron Glenn hasn't been able to hide his frustration. The Steelers now are 4-2. They could go all in, and we know that the Steelers aren't without the roster needs, and it might be time for Pittsburgh to reach out to New York to see if they can fill a roster spot. Pittsburgh is going to be without Calvin Austin III. I think he's going to be coming back tomorrow, but of course they were without him for a while. For the Steelers, the idea makes sense. Wilson is the caliber of player a team should give up a first-round pick for. Folks, let's dive into it. Now, there's been a lot of new reports as well. I'll dive into some of the newer stuff in a minute here, but let's just look at his stats. Every single season since he's joined the NFL, he has had at least 1,000 receiving yards, and he is an absolute stud. He would pair perfectly with DK Metcalf. This would be wild. And obviously, the Steelers aren't afraid to make big moves. They traded a second-round pick for DK Metcalf. They traded for Jalen Ramsey. They traded for and acquired Darius Slay. All these different guys are not afraid to do it. And now with the new reports that they're going after, wide receivers, if Garrett Wilson becomes available, and Woody Johnson is an interesting owner, and he's pretty bad. So I know on the surface it might look like, why on earth would the Jets trade their superstar cornerstone? The Jets have done crazier things, and if they want to really facilitate a complete rebuild over there, which they need to do, right? Maybe even beyond Garrett Wilson, this would make a ton of sense. And as you look into, again, Garrett Wilson and the Steelers depth chart, we know Calvin Austin should be playing tomorrow. We have some updates on that I'll dive into in a minute here. But Aaron Rodgers has shown at least some sort of willingness to come back next year. Now, whether or not the Steelers, draft their quarterback this upcoming draft and use and re-sign Aaron Rodgers for another year, have all these different things. You have Will Howard coming back and returning from the IR as well. Maybe he's the solution. Probably not, but maybe. Regardless of that, having a guy like Garrett Wilson, who no matter what quarterback you throw in there, Wilson's going to get his yards. I mean, he's up to 400 yards through 6 games with the Jets, a Jets team that is really, really bad, has some horrible quarterback play, and if you can bring him to Pittsburgh, it would be an absolute robbery. And I'm aware this would be a bit of a long shot, right? Like this would be a blockbuster trade that puts the Steelers, you could argue, over the top. Obviously, a lot of different things there. He is a beast, truly. And there was a recent article that dropped. Garrett Wilson trade rumors. This one was from just a couple days ago. The Browns Steelers are top landing spots for the Jets wide receiver from Gosse. And she goes on to say the Steelers could be an intriguing destination for Wilson, especially with his former teammate Aaron Rodgers under center. The Steelers have quietly built one of AFC's most balanced rosters. And of course, they lack a true number 2 receiver, to be completely honest. And let me know down below what your take is on this. Do you think Garrett Wilson would be the WR1, or do you think it would be DK Metcalf? And something I do need to keep in mind, and I'll dive into in a minute here, is the targets. But let's finish this first. Adding Wilson can give Rodgers a polished route runner, which they need, and he would completely complement DK Metcalf really well and completely open up the offense even more. The move would also open up space for tight ends and underneath options to thrive in Arthur Smith's offense. The Steelers have already made win-now moves. Obviously, I covered those. Trading Wilson would be another sign that Omar and Mike Tomlin are going all in. Also, this wouldn't just be an all-in move that it's a rental. You could extend him. You can keep him. You're not going to get rid of Garrett Wilson if you get him, right? There's just no way that's going to happen. This would be fantastic. However, There's a caveat to all of this. Feel free to look at the depth chart here, okay? You see the depth chart. There was also a stat recently, and obviously the Steelers went up against the Bengals last time they played. Ja'Marr Chase gets way more receptions, way more targets than any of the Steelers wide receivers. And targets are something that are very hard to come by in this offense under Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin, the way that they run it. That being said, if you trade for Garrett Wilson, you have Garrett Wilson, DK Metcalf, you're going to have to find ways to get these guys involved, right? Wilson already has 4 touchdowns this year, which is incredible because obviously he's their main and basically only main option in the wide receiving core of the Jets. But regardless of that, you are looking at it, you need to find ways, no matter what wide receiver you get, to actually go out and utilize these players. But man, oh man, would it be fantastic. You'd have to utilize them like the Bengals utilize, of course, T. Higgins and Ja'Marr Chase. That's the level of wide receiving core you would have with this, and it would be wild, and rumors are really starting to fly. Things are starting to really pick up, and are they actually going to get Garrett Wilson? It might be a bit of a long shot, but I don't want to rule them out of anything, and it would be an absolute screw robbery. It would be a generational heist to be able to take advantage of Woody Johnson, a guy who has not been very good at the helm of the Jets. Now, let's dive into a few other things here. Let's start with the injury report for Week 8 starting tomorrow. Let's look at some of the injury updates. Of course, Will Howard, questionable, probably won't play. You have Malik Harrison, Zach Frazier, and Scotty Miller as questionables. You know what that means, folks? Calvin Austin should be making his return tomorrow, which is interesting because amidst all of this trade speculation, he's a pretty big part of this. And obviously, Roman Wilson got a lot more time last game because Calvin Austin was out. And Roman Wilson has seen more the past couple weeks, but he's kind of fallen out of favor. We know the Steelers like to run their 3 tight end sets with Jonnu Smith, Pat Freiermuth, and Darnell Washington. But Calvin Austin said he's looking forward to getting back in the field this week after missing the last 2 games with a shoulder injury. Hasn't had a lot of time yet with quarterback Aaron Rodgers and wants to go out and do his best for him, especially with Rodgers facing his former team. Just have him having the confidence in himself, or rather, just having his confidence in himself and who he is, said Austin. When I'm out there, it's fun playing for 8, Hall of Fame quarterback that's continuing to build his resume. We're a part of that, so you just want to continue to make plays, obviously for ourselves and what we do, but for him as well. Let me know down below how excited you are. I'm making a lot of videos on trade talks because that's the storyline right now for the Steelers, and we're covering the storylines. But seeing what Calvin Austin can do, you had to take care of business against the New York Jets. If you lose that game, like every game at this point is almost a must-win. The Bengals have an easy schedule. The Ravens, luckily, are without Lamar Jackson tomorrow again, but they're going to try to make a push here. The Steelers are in the driver's seat despite all the dooming and glooming from fans. They are in the driver's seat. Yes, their defense has been horrible. You can figure that out. I have full faith in this team because why not, right? Well, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why. We look at the previous years, but who cares? Screw that. They're going to come out. They're going to win tomorrow. We're going to make videos every single day, keeping you up to date. You guys have been an absolute beast. Let me know down below what your thoughts are on Garrett Wilson and Calvin Austin's return, and also Aaron Rodgers as quarterback with, of course, Calvin Austin.